Welcome into the Plus Studio. I'm Isaiah Kim Martinez. We've told you that we're going to be talking with as many of the U.S. Senate candidates here in Kentucky as possible. And with just days left to go until the primary election in this state, we're joined by Senate candidate Pam Stevenson, the state representative from Louisville, a Democrat here in the state. Pamela, thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you. And the House floor leader.
And we have to mention that. Representative Stevenson, the House Democratic leader in Frankfort, we know that you have been very, very busy with a budget session, which is like, you have to campaign and you have to work as a sitting lawmaker. Let's start there. I mean, how difficult has it been for you to fully give your campaign everything it needs while also dealing with a 60-day legislative session?
The 60-day legislative session was vital because we were able to give Kentuckians what they need. That was the purpose. We didn't do it well, but we were able to try to work the budget to make sure that Kentuckians got what they need: food, clothing, shelter. And those are the basics. And we have an obligation to make sure that Kentuckians have the basics. So the session was very, very, anytime you're talking about money, people get their panties in a knot. And so we worked with both sides to try to come up with something that will serve Kentucky. And while I'm disappointed by, for example, the cuts in Medicaid, I am also encouraged by the work we did to try to make bad bills better.
When we were walking in, we were talking about just the struggles of the everyday person, right? We know that a lot of folks are dealing with higher gas prices right now, and that is something that, generally speaking, at a local and state level, we don't have a lot of control over. But we know that the governor recently, just this week, Governor Andy Beshear, Democrat here in Kentucky, has moved to freeze the gas tax increase that normally would apply July 1. And he also moved to, with the signature of the Republican Attorney General, which he signed it, to reduce the gas tax by 10 cents May 11th. I assume you support this effort, but talk to me about sort of, I guess, Kentucky doing what Kentucky can as it relates to the price at the pump.
Well, this is, I'm glad Governor Beshear did what he did, and I'm glad the Attorney General aligned with it. We have to keep the focus on working families. And if you have to measure a gallon of gas to see, do I go to work? Do I do this? What do I do? It has a huge impact. It has a huge impact on me. When I filled up my car and it was $60 and I have a small car, I'm like, wow. So when we do what we can for working families, it pays out for everyone. And right now they're crying out for help.
We talk a lot about some of the president's initiatives because as a U.S. Senate candidate who hopes to be in that position, you would have to be working either with the president or in some cases pushing back on some of his efforts. This week, we've seen a lot come out on Iran when it comes to the Strait of Hormuz, when it comes to an effort to guide ships going through that region. As someone with an Air Force background, walk me through where your head is at right now with the latest in Iran.
Well, when I was on active duty and I advised commanders about the rules of law, I advised them about battle plans and the different things that we had to do to protect the promise of America. And in all of those conversations, in all of those negotiations, we had a plan, a way in and a way out, and we were able to pivot, because you always pivot. And we knew what we're going in. And now the benefit of that is the airmen, soldiers and sailors and Marines trusted us because they knew we had their back. They knew we had thought through it. They knew that we wouldn't put them in harm's way for no reason. And we don't have that right now. The military people are afraid, and they can't say a lot, because that's our culture. You do what you're told. You make sure you obey orders. And yet, there's some concern. We should not be in that war. Before the war happened, we didn't have money for social services. We didn't have money for Medicaid. Now we're paying $1 billion a day for a war we shouldn't be in. We went from Venezuela to making Canada, the 51st state, to buying Greenland, over to bombing them, back to Cuba. That's not foreign policy. So, no, we shouldn't be there. Yes, we must get out. And we must get out in a way that preserves the lives of military men and women.
If you were in the Senate right now, if elected, how would you combat this effort right now? What are steps that you would take as senator from Kentucky to offset some of these actions? What could you do?
Well, as long as they have a supermajority, you have to work with who's there. That's it. In Frankfurt, we have a supermajority, 80 Republicans, 20 Dems. And we are managed to get things done because we reach across the aisles, we listen to people and to the legislators, and we find places where we have common ground. We have to build a coalition. And in the Senate, you would do the same thing. You would have to build a coalition, do what you can under the laws. Just don't break the laws, like the 60-Day War Powers Act. Where's Congress? Why haven't they been asked for approval for this war? We have to keep talking, keep reaching across the aisle. We don't have the luxury of saying, okay, I asked one time and that's it. We must take as much action as we can. That's number one. And then number two, we have to inform the public of what we're doing so they don't lose confidence in the system and think that we're doing nothing. So listening to people, telling them what we're doing, and looking for creative ways to make sure the balance of power in the three branches of government is restored. Right now, we don't have that.
You talk about reaching across the aisle to do something in this case as it relates to Iran, as it relates to these foreign interventions. What does that look like? What kind of action do you believe Democrats need to be taking right now that they aren't?
For one thing, the filibuster. Right now, they can just say the word filibuster and not have to come to the floor. Let's reform that so that if you're going to do that, because it wasn't used before as much as it's used now. If you're going to use it, at least walk to the floor. Everybody show up. Don't mail it in.
As far as making things more affordable, what is your top policy priority to make life more affordable if you were elected?
First, we have to get rid of some of the bad laws that have been transpired, the tariffs that don't necessarily serve a purpose. And now we're refunding tariff price fees to companies that have already passed them on to consumers.
I think the president rolled some of those back for bourbon in the UK, I believe. That got some news as well after meeting the king and queen.
Yeah, that part. We do things. If we put the working families at the center of our actions, we get a different result. Why did the King of England have to come here to roll back bourbon prices in England? Why didn't we roll it back? Because it's impacting families, because distilleries are closing. Why didn't we roll it back? Because it doesn't work for everyday people. Our focus is entirely wrong. We have to refocus on the working family to make sure that this government stays for the people, by the people, to serve the people. And we don't do that well.
We have a major housing crisis across the United States. Louisville's no exception. Tens of thousands of affordable housing units short. I was just talking with the PVA, the administrator, last week about how people's property taxes are going way up because there's just not enough housing out there. People are not selling at the rate that they were. As a senator, U.S. Senator, if you were elected, how do you build more housing across the state?
One of the things we did a bill in Frankfurt for the Housing Trust Fund. We have access. We need to make sure that the monies in Washington, D.C. actually get funneled to the areas that need housing, particularly the rural areas, the city areas. Then we need to bring together a coalition, the builders, the people that need housing, and come up with a plan. Come up with a plan that looks at why it costs so much and also make sure that it's doable, not a pie-in-the-sky plan, something that will give people relief as soon as we can. The other thing is some of our policies are causing these prices to go up. Anytime you have to get up in the morning and look at the market to see how much you're going to charge, that's a problem for working people, not for the companies. So the primary thing that's missing is the focus on making sure that working families have what they need or have access to what they need, like health care and housing. They say some of the people that I've spoken with are concerned. The families are concerned because they're living check to check. They're working. How is it you can work in this country, one of the richest countries in this world, work 2 jobs, 3 jobs, and still not have ends meet? To answer that, we also raised the minimum wage. We put in a bill to raise the minimum wage from $7.25. That's what we can do at the federal level. Raise the minimum wage. Make sure that people are being paid for the level of work that they do. And a good example of that are the teachers. We say children are our future, and then we don't pay the teachers. We have teachers working 2 jobs, teachers with compassion, trying to take care of children, make sure they're hungry and clothed, bus drivers that don't have bus monitors. So we have to do a better job of making sure that the resources we use are used for working families, because Kentucky has resources and the federal government has resources, and it's not being directed in the direction that it could go in.
As the state house minority leader in Kentucky, you know and have seen the congressional maps in this state redrawn in the past. It's not uncommon. We see it across the country. Some folks like it, some folks don't. However, the stage we're in right now is sort of uncharted territory in many ways, with the president specifically having influence. In Indiana, there were several Republicans who lost their primary races to Trump-backed challengers because the president and his allies wanted to unseat them, vowed to unseat them because they voted down redrawing congressional maps in December. What do you make of this, and what does that mean for Kentucky in the future?
Our system of government works because people are engaged and we have safeguards. Like, I like the League of Women Voters plan that if you're going to redraw the maps, let it be nonpartisan. That we are in a time where a president could say, I need 3 more seats. Redraw these lines in the next 2 weeks so we can win these elections. And if you don't vote for me, I'm going to punish you. That's not America. That's not democracy. And it goes directly against what we stand for. We can't redraw lines to win. We win by being what the people need. We win by having the values associated with being in America. You don't win by cheating.
We saw Republican leadership. Some of those state senators were in leadership in Indiana who were unseated. Is there any concern in your mind that something like that could happen in Kentucky to Republicans who you've worked with?
I haven't heard that they're going to redistrict. When we were in session, no one spoke of it. We focused on the budget. The last time we did the normal time, every 10 years, when we redrew the lines. We redrew them in a funny way, but at least it was consistent with, okay, it's 10 years, we're in charge, so this is the way we're going to draw these lines. Do you like it? No. But that is far more stabilizing than what's happening in Louisiana. Let's stop the election so that we can take advantage of these court rulings and the redrawing of the lines.
So there's no belief that Republicans are going to try to make this 6-0 and try to draw up Louisville or Jefferson County in a way where they could win that. So you don't get a sense that that's on the horizon?
I don't get a sense that it is, and I will say I'm not in their staff meetings. Mm-hmm. So I only know what I have been told, and I've been told that wasn't on the table.
Mm-hmm. The Voting Rights Act, this is related, right? Especially Section 2 that deals with majority-minority districts and the protections that are there for them. At least that's how it's been interpreted on a court level for decades. The Supreme Court, I believe it was last week, reinterpreted, at least the conservative majority, what that means. There is now a lot happening, sort of these ripple effects. We see Tennessee trying a 9-0 map. Louisiana is delaying their primaries. How do you, I guess first, what are your thoughts on sort of that decision and what you believe the path forward is now for many states, including Kentucky?
The That they would gut the Voting Rights Act, which was a remedy for harms. I know in the 60s when they were fighting for those rights, there were a number of African American people that were going to vote, and they would say goodbye to their families because they knew they were going to be spat upon, something bad was going to happen. And if they were lucky, they would come back home. But they were willing to go try to vote for a whole generation that they didn't even know. That we took something that was a remedy to a problem we had and turned it on its head is a problem. It is saying to a number of people in this country, we don't want your vote, we don't treasure your vote, and we don't care if you vote. So I think it was a bad move. I think it was political, and the Supreme Court is not supposed to be political. It's supposed to rely on precedents. And before we undo what we've done before, it has to be a really, really good reason. And the only really good reason was a political one.
I want to touch on this race for a moment. You're aware of the polls, and many show that Charles Booker is the front runner here and that Amy is likely second. You're trailing a bit, but the state does know you. You've run statewide races in the past. Louisville knows you very well. How do you make a push to sort of overcome the odds in the final couple weeks?
Well, that poll that they keep talking about, almost 40% of the people were undecided. And that's a huge number of people.
Yeah.
So we go where the people are. We go to barbershops, beauty shops, churches. We go out to the rural areas, and we listen to what people need to make their life work. And the reception has been good. In addition, I've got plenty of practice working across the aisle with Republicans. If you ask any Republican in the House, they know if my word is my bond. If I say it, I'm going to do it. And so I am able to work with them, and they work with me.
You said you were just in Pulaski County. You were talking to a lot of Republicans.
Yeah, and it's interesting that after serving 27 years in the United States Air Force and serving in 11 countries, many of the countries like the Middle East and many countries in Africa, I didn't speak the language. But we had translators, and what I discovered was no matter what your language and no matter what your culture, we all want the same things. We want our children to do better, we want our families to thrive, and we want this one life we have to make a difference. And when we focus on doing those three things, we have alignment, and we can lift up Kentucky so that we can show the other 49 states how to take care of families, how to make sure that we resolve the issues facing humanity. We can do it. Kentucky has everything we need. We just have to be brave enough to do it. And I have that experience in doing it in foreign countries. That's what we need in a senator, someone that can build coalitions, someone that has the experience, someone that's a legislator, someone that's a 40-year lawyer, someone that has worked across the aisle, someone who has done national defense, someone who's advised on the rule of law, someone who can reach people where they are and make sure that the people are heard.
State Representative Pamela Stevenson of Louisville, the House Democratic leader here in Kentucky. We appreciate you taking the time. Running for U.S. Senate, and the primary is just how many days away? Just a few?
Yes. Oh, I shouldn't be so excited.
Yeah. We'll see what happens. Certainly is going to be a lot to watch. We appreciate you coming in. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Y'all take care.